And I think it's almost across the board for businesses. When the leaders are in it primarily to, I'm going to make a bunch of money and get out, they fail because they're not passionately
100%.
going after creating real value in the marketplace and love doing that. Like, just love it.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
We are a bit kind of a theory in this podcast, and you need to share your opinion that we won't be more sustainable if the entrepreneur make money in the business, take this money, let's say invest it. Let's suppose you buy a house, you rent the house, and the rent that the house is giving to you, you can use this money for marketing and reinvest in your business. And in the future, something goes wrong with the business, still you have the asset producing income. Or how will be your approach based on your own experience for first-time entrepreneurs? Because it's not fair that that you will work very hard in the business. Not so many people are so fortunate like you that build so many and exit so many. Some people only have the opportunity to build one and they exit it, but then they take this money and they make the wrong investment or they lose it all, or they work very hard growing the business and all of a sudden dramatic COVID happened, something happened, they go to zero very quickly, and now they left with nothing after working so hard. So how can they mitigate the risk?
That is a great question. And usually when you start out, like when I started my business, you can't have everything all at once. You're kind of putting yourself out there. And if something would have gone wrong early, let's say in year one or year two, I probably would have been done financially and that's it. But that said, I made everything kind of formulaic. So as money came in and there was profit, X% stayed in the company, X% distributed to cover taxes, X% for growth. So it was a small amount in the early years that was paid to mainly myself as the majority owner, but to the investors or the employees that work there on top of taxes. But that just kept growing because I kept the formula all the way through. And then diversified customers. Got to a place where we can't have more than 5% of our business with any one customer, and diversified niches in the industry, people movers, package movers, helicopters, transportation, emergency medical. Globally, we had in the largest business I sold, aerospace business, we had about 2,000 customers in 60 countries. And if there was a recession or a slowdown in one part of the world, another part of the world was taking off. So it was about recession-proofing what's going on. My whole point here, Harry, is how do we develop our businesses so they become more and more recession-proof? And especially if there is a downturn that happens in your industry, study previous downturns and which were the companies like you that did really well and which were the ones that went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Be more like the ones that did well. So I remember like one quick short story. After 9/11, we're in the aerospace business, we're repairing and overhauling parts, we're reducing aircraft operating costs for our customers, and they just parked the airplanes and people weren't flying as much. So they didn't even work on the ones that needed work. They would just fly the ones that didn't need maintenance. Mm-hmm. And so most of our competitors went back significantly. A lot of them went out of business. And what we did is we went into the airlines and said, look, we will take over these maintenance programs for you, so you don't have to carry the overhead. And
you added value to the clients, right?
We grew and everybody.
Wow,
so
very impressive.
But every single company in any industry can be positioning itself to be more and more recession proof. And then you can put things in place. I had 6 months worth of business interruption insurance. If something happened within that amount of time, we could be in another facility, et cetera. So you can do all of this. But you can't have it all in the beginning, but you can be moving in that direction to be more and more secure and diversify. So if one thing goes down, it doesn't take you completely out.
Yeah, very powerful words that you shared in Lee, one is diversifying, right? Because you can mitigate your risk to don't go out of business if something drastic happen, right? The other one is respond to change, right? Because you see 9/11, all the planes start to stop, and then you had to change fast, right? And all these organizations, a lot of companies out there, you see the structures like a big Titanic, right? A big boat, vertical sea level and management. And then, when you have to turn right, the boat is so big that is so slow. Whether it seems to me that the structure that you have in your company is right than this big Titanic is like the 3,000 little boats, yeah, and then you are in the front of the first little boats, and then you have 3,000 little boats, and then you say turn right, and everybody, choof, turn right quickly and respond to change. Can you tell us a little bit more about this, about responding to change fast, which is also can be the savior for the companies, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, do you have a company that's just riding the wave of whatever's happening in your industry, or are you actually making things happen? And thinking about that. And most companies, there are a few exceptions, but most companies are barely a grain of sand on a beach of all the business that's available. Even in aviation, what we were doing, there was over $1 trillion worth of work going on around the world between manufacturing and operating and repairing and overhauling and services.
Wow. Sounds
we
big.
were at when I sold it, we were $100 million, that particular business, $100 million business, very profitable, about 500 employees, still a grain of sand on the beach. I could see a clear path to $1 billion. Didn't even want to sell. We had a company approach us. I walked away 3 times. And then eventually they gave us 21.6x multiple of EBITDA to buy it. And then I just got to move on and do other things that I'm interested in.
Absolutely.
It's so cool.
It's an offer that you can't refuse.
Well, and I actually think, Harry, an equally good option, if not even better, would have been keeping the business. It was going great. And because I think to that point, all of us should keep our business at a place where it's worth the most that it can be worth, because life conditions change. And when it comes time to sell, be in a position where keeping it is equally, if not a better option to selling it, whatever that is. And if you're doing all the right stuff, you get a higher multiple, find a strategic buyer, consistent growth rate, believable story about where you're going to go into the future. Like there's so much here that can be so fun and so cool. And one of the questions that you sent me before this interview was why do 90% of startups fail? And I think it's almost across the board for businesses. When the leaders are in it primarily to, I'm going to make a bunch of money and get out, they fail because they're not passionately
100%.
Going after creating real value in the marketplace and love doing that. Like just love it. They just don't. And I spoke a couple of years ago at a startup conference, and there's probably 50 startup entrepreneurs in the room. And my presentation was why 90% of startups fail and why 90% don't have to. And I said it was because of the reason I just stated. And I talked to most of the folks in the room. And when I was giving the presentation, I said, most of you are asking me how to modify your pitch deck for me to give you money. There was only one person in the room that I could tell was passionate about solving a problem. Anybody's business in the room, it would be that person. And she knew who she was. She was sitting in the room. I could see the big smile on her face. And I didn't even tell her that. She just knew who she was. And then right after that, somebody asked me, what do you want to see in my pitch deck so you'll give me money? It's like, oh, you guys just
don't get it.
You just don't get it. So that's why you're going to fail, likely.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.